Chapter 15 is numbers and a few interesting new case usages. The first conceptual distinction, the first new piece of sort of grammatical information is the distinction between cardinal and ordinal numbers. Cardinals are like 1, 2, 3, 4 in English, as opposed to ordinals, which are first, second, third, and fourth. The ordinals are telling you where this thing you're modifying falls in an order. Most cardinal numbers are indeclinable, with a few exceptions. You should treat this number list, which you'll find in the appendix of your book. You should treat this as basically part of your vocab. You don't need to do all of them, but you definitely need the first, let's say, 12 for sure down pat, and then you should internalize basically the system of how the tens units works, triginta, quadraginta, this idea of taking part of the the cardinal number and adding ginta in order to create the tens version. So treat these off to my left as part of your vocab. Ordinals, likewise, are going to function as adjectives. If you're going to talk about the first something, you might do that substantively, like the first, with the context supplying what I'm talking about, but most of the time you're going to say, my first car was an Isuzu pickup truck. So you should learn these. There's obviously a relationship between the cardinal and the ordinal form most of the time. The other thing to learn in this chapter are these unique uses of cases. Particularly notable is the ablative of time at which I would say maybe it's an extension of the ablative of location, or maybe it's an extension of the ablative of instrument. I'm not entirely sure, but I would say it doesn't obviously follow from the sort of basic uses of the ablative case that you're used to. That's part of language. So note how the independent ablative used with a time word, and often with a number, which is why it's in this chapter, but used with a time word, or maybe a deictic, sort of demonstrative pronoun, something like that, can mean on the third day, during the third hour. That sort of use is what this chapter is teaching you. There's also the ablative of the whole, I think they call it. The genitive of the whole, which is, you've seen this sort of thing, pars urbis, part of the city. It's again showing you that genitives do not mean possession, right? Genitives have this fundamental adjectival function, this limiting function. So part of what? Part of the city. That is functioning much more like an adjective, although it's not quite an adjective either, but it's functioning like an adjective, not like possession. So of course, in English will help you with this. It's nice that we use of largely the same way, but that's something to pay attention to. There's also an ablative with cardinal numbers that's mentioned. I think this shows up usually almost always with prepositions. This use of from number, or number from a whole, using x plus the ablative, doesn't translate well if you translate it literally. So this is worth noting. This is a sort of, I guess you could say this is an idiom, although I think it's not really an idiom, because what's going on in the Latin actually makes good sense. It's just not how we say it. That 3 from my friends is sort of picking 3 out from the class of friends. So it's not an idiom because it actually makes sense logically in Latin. It just isn't the way we speak in English, if you were to translate literally. So note those features and learn your numbers.